Temperature and top P controls the diversity of a model's response. Okay, higher value of these parameters will result in the model generating responses that are more diverse. Okay, responses that will be more random. Okay, the model will behave more imaginative. Okay, অপরদিকে যদি আপনি প্যারামিটারগুলোর value, if you set it to a lower value, then the response will be the opposite. Okay, the responses from the model in this case will be more deterministic. Okay, the responses will be more factual. Okay, it will be more straightforward. So consider this phrase. Okay, given this phrase, we want our model to predict the next word. Okay, এখন যদি প্রশ্ন করি কিভাবে আমাদের মডেল সে জানে which word should come next. Okay, আমরা জেনে এসেছি আমাদের মডেল it was trained on terabytes of data from which it knows the pattern. It knows which words are more likely to appear given an input sequence. ধরা যাক these are the words that are more likely to appear after I believe I can. এবং কিভাবে আমাদের model it decides which word to pick, right? আমাদের model it was trained on billions of text data এবং সে জানে সে ওই ডেটা থেকে দেখেছে well these words are more common, these words appear after I believe I can. But how does our model pick a particular word? আমাদের model it sees the likelihood of the appearance of each of these words given the input sequence. Okay, so আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি fly it is the most likely word to appear after I believe I can, and other words although they're also quite likely, they're not as likely as the word fly. Okay, so চলুন let us sort these words in a descending order. Okay, so fly is the most likely, so it is at the very left, and in descending order we get from win, do and succeed all the way to sing. Okay, so যদি আমরা আমাদের probable next word গুলোকে if we sort them in a descending order based on their likelihood or probability of appearance, আমরা বলতে পারি the words that appear at the very left are more likely. Okay, and the words that appear to the very right, they are less likely. Okay, which also means a particular word they are not predictable. Okay, and on the other hand the words that are more likely, they are more predictable. Okay, so what does diversity mean? Okay, যদি আমাদের model it picks say a word that is not very likely, তখনই আমরা কিন্তু বলি যে আমাদের আউটপুট ইজ ভেরি ডাইভার্স, আমাদের মডেল এমন একটি আউটপুট জেনারেট করেছে যেটা আমরা এক্সপেক্ট করিনি, রাইট? অন দি আদার হ্যান্ড যদি আমাদের মডেল ইট পিক্স দ্য ওয়ার্ড দ্যাট ইজ মোর প্রেডিক্টেবল, দ্যাট ইজ হাইলি লাইকলি, দেন আমরা বলি ওকে আমাদের মডেল ইটস ডিটারমিনিস্টিক, the output I already knew that this was gonna come, I was expecting this output. Okay, so what does top P and temperature have to do with the model's ability to decide which word it should pick as the next word? Okay, so let us start with top P. Okay, top P it basically sets the pool of words. Okay, and pool of words এর অর্থ হলো it's basically the set of words that our model takes into consideration before picking a particular word. Okay, and temperature on the other hand, this parameter decides which word to pick from the pool. Okay, and the value of top P is within the range 0 to 1 and temperature within 0 to 2. Okay, so চলুন দেখে নেওয়া যাক what do these values mean. Okay, so let's say আমাদের top P is set to 0.7, okay, which basically means 70%, right? So what does this mean? এর অর্থ কি? যখন top P is set to 70%, আমাদের model what it will do is, starting from the most likely word, it will start to add the probability or the likelihood of each of the words to the right until the cumulative probability or the cumulative sum will be equal to 70%. Okay, so যখন top P is set to 70%, আমাদের model প্রথম ওয়ার্ডটার কাছে যাবে and it will see the cumulative probability is basically the first probability 15%. So it will go to the right, the second most likely word, and if you add the likelihood 12.5% with 15%, it's still not 70% in total. Okay, so it will take the third most likely word. এখন if you again add the 12.4% to the cumulative probability, it's still not 70%. Then if you add succeed, still not 70%. If you add make, still not 70%. Finally, if you add the word learn from 15%, then 12.5%, all the way to 9.5%, if you add all this likelihood, it totals to 70%. So if you set top P to 70% or 0.7, then our model will set the pool of words to be this one. Okay, so when considering which word to put as the next word, আমাদের model শুধু it will consider these most likely words and it will discard the rest of the words. Okay, so আমাদের pool of words it is set, right? আমাদের model এখন সে জানে কোন ওয়ার্ডগুলো আমি কনসিডার করছি when deciding which word to pick, but প্রশ্ন থেকে যায়, well then which word our model will pick? আমরা জানি we have fixed the pool of words. We now know which words are included in the pool of words, but which words to consider. Okay, and that's where temperature comes into play. Jodi say we use a very low value for our temperature, say 0, then from the pool of words temperature it would only consider the most likely word and it would not consider any other words. Okay, অপরদিকে যদি আমরা আমাদের temperature value if we set it to a higher value, say 2, then আমাদের model it would consider all of the words from our pool. Okay, so top P it decides from all of the available words in our vocabulary that could appear as the next word, which words to include in our pool. Okay, and temperature it basically decides which words to consider from the pool. Okay, so যদি আপনাকে প্রশ্ন করি what if the top P it was set to 100%, right? So যদি আপনাকে প্রশ্ন করি what if the top P was set to 1, basically 100%, then আমাদের model it would consider all of the words as its pool. It would include all of the words in our pool. Again, the same thing, যদি আমরা আমাদের temperature set করি at a very low value, say 0, then আমাদের model from the pool of words it would consider the most likely word, and if the temperature is set to a very high value, then it would consider all of the words from the pool of words from the pool. Okay, so আশা করি আপনি দেখতে পাচ্ছেন if we increase the value of top P, then even the less likely words are included in the pool. Okay, and if we increase the temperature as well to a very high value, again even the least likely word is considered, right? Which means আমাদের model it can produce, it can pick a less predictable word as the next word. Okay, কিন্তু যদি values of temperature and top P is very low, then our model would only pick the most likely words, making it more deterministic. Okay, so আমরা কি শিখলাম regarding temperature and top P? Both of these temperatures, they control the diversity of a model's response. Okay, regarding top P, a particular parameter, it sets the size of pool of words. Okay, এবং the higher the value, even the less likely words are to be included in the pool. কিন্তু যদি value, if it is a low value, then only the most likely words are included, right? Similarly, in case of temperature, it decides which words to consider from the pool. Okay, a very high value would make the model consider even the less likely words from the pool. Kintu jodi value, if it's set to a very low value, then only the most likely words are considered. Okay, so modda kotha holo, if you want your model to generate very diverse, very creative outputs, then it's better to keep the values of both top P and temperature to a high value. Okay, অপর দিকে যদি আপনি দেখেন, well, the task I want my model to complete, it's very deterministic, the output, আমি চাই না আমার output it should be very creative, then it's better to keep the values of these parameters to a lower value. Okay, ছোটো একটা disclaimer, in reality আমাদের model, it works with tokens and not words, right? So আমি যে demonstration দেখালাম, for simplicity, for ease of understanding, I used words instead of tokens. Okay, so we'll learn about tokens in a later video. So cholun, let's go back to our playground to see some examples. Okay, so আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি the complete mode is selected, the model is DaVinci 003, and the default values of temperature and top P is set to 1. Okay, temperature 1 and top P is 1. Okay, so একটা pro tip, when we'll try out our examples, it's recommended to keep the top P to its maximum possible value. Okay, আমরা দেখেছি যখন top P is set to the maximum possible value, which is 1, okay, আমাদের model, it basically picks all possible words, all the words from the most likely to the least likely to be included in our pool. Okay, so for our experimentation, we'll consider the pool size to be at 100%. Okay, the only parameter we'll tweak is this one, the temperature. Okay, so top P is set to 1, so basically we have all the words in our pool, and now we'll use the temperature to either pick the most likely words, right? এবং আমরা বলেছি যখন আমাদের temperature, the value of temperature is a very low value, the model produces deterministic outputs. Okay, আমরা এটাও বলেছিলাম when temperature is at a very high value, it considers all of the words, be it the most likely or the least likely, everything is considered from the pool. Okay, এবং the output, it tends to be more creative. So we'll only change this parameter for our demonstration. Okay, so যেমনটা আপনি দেখতে পাচ্ছেন, this is our prompt, text DaVinci 003, তাকে আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছি describe a world without gravity. এখন আপনাকে আমি যদি জিজ্ঞেস করি what do you think a particular questionnaire response, should the response be very creative or the response, it should be very deterministic and straightforward? It's quite obvious the output, it should be very creative and imaginative, right? আমি চাই আমার model, it should push its limit beyond reality, right? Because a particular প্রশ্ন, it is beyond reality, right? So a particular prompt যেখানে আমি চাচ্ছি আমার response, it should be creative and not very deterministic, আমি to make the model generate creative output, I will actually set the temperature value to a high value, say 1.2. So if I click submit, So আপনি দেখতে পাচ্ছেন the output, it is actually quite creative, right? So with the same settings, let us try a different prompt. Okay, so DaVinci 003 কে আমি ask করছি another question similar to this one. What is the meaning of human existence? যদি আপনাকে জিজ্ঞেস করি, should the answer be deterministic or should it be creative? It should be creative, right? So if I click submit, not bad, right? What about another prompt? Say আমি একটি কোর্স নিচ্ছি on prompt engineering. So if I ask DaVinci to write a tagline for this online course, let's see what it has to say. I think it can do better. Okay, so আমি যদি আমার temperature, if I increase it a bit more, say 1.5, let's see what happens now. Be sure to delete this one. If I click submit, it seems much better, right? You know what's interesting about the term creative? Keeping the same settings, so the top P at 1 and temperature at 1.5, if I try to generate response for the same prompt, যদি আপনি লক্ষ্য করেন, the next time it actually would output something different. You see, আমি কিন্তু আমার prompt কিংবা আমার parameter বা model কোনো কিছুই চেঞ্জ করিনি, but the output, it's different, right? What if I try again? So delete and then submit. Wow, it's quite cool, right? No matter how many times I generate DaVinci, it actually generates something new, right? So curious mind wants to know, what if for the same prompt, যেখানে আমি চাচ্ছি DaVinci it should be creative and not deterministic, what if I force DaVinci to be deterministic? Okay, so to make the responses more bold and factual and less creative, আমাদের কি করতে হবে? We have to turn down the temperature. So let's say the temperature is set to a full 0. Okay, let's see what DaVinci has to offer. Okay, so if I click submit, যদি আপনি notice করেন a particular output, it's kind of predictable, right? It's not very creative. Words like unlock, unleash, a particular word, these are very common when it comes to taglines. Okay, and do you know what's more interesting? Remember this particular output carefully. Okay, যদি with the same settings, if I try to generate the response for the same prompt, আপনি দেখবেন DaVinci will actually generate the same output repetitively. Okay, so if I delete the temperature set to be deterministic, if I click submit, you see it generates the same response, exactly the same as before. Okay, if I delete the output and if I generate again, you see the output, it's not only deterministic, it is also repetitive, right? DaVinci has lost its creative power. No matter how many times you generate, it would always generate the same thing again and again. So there is no creativity. So আপনাকে বুঝতে হবে আপনার purpose. You have to know whether you want the model to be creative or not. So how about scenarios where temperature of 0 is actually desired? Okay, so let's consider this particular example. Okay, DaVinci কে আমি simply জিজ্ঞেস করছি, where did the Titanic sink? Now think about this. চিন্তা করে দেখুন, do I really want DaVinci to be creative? A particular question, it's actually a general knowledge question, right? I want a straightforward answer. I don't want DaVinci to be creative, right? So temperature set to a very low value, say 0, should produce what I want. So if I submit, the output is quite good, right? So how to test আমাদের response, is it actually deterministic? Let's delete the response and ask DaVinci to provide the output again. So you see the same output. যেহেতু আমাদের temperature is set to a very low value, the output will always be deterministic and not creative. Not only that, আমাদের output, it is very repetitive. It generates the same thing over and over again, right? So let's try out some other prompts with the same settings. What about this question? If I submit, okay, it's 180 degree, so the output is correct, right? What if I want my DaVinci to solve me an equation? Quite good, right? What about another general knowledge question? If I ask, so DaVinci is doing quite good, right? So আপনি দেখলেন, if your question it's a general knowledge question, হতে পারে আপনি তার কাছে you want to know some information, অথবা হতে পারে you want DaVinci to solve you a math equation, a maths problem, then it's better to use deterministic values of temperature, right? So কেমন হতো যদি for the same scenario where we want DaVinci to be deterministic, what if we use a creative value of temperature? Say I increase my temperature all the way to a maximum of 2, okay? Now if I ask DaVinci to complete my instruction, let's see what it has to offer. You see, DaVinci is actually stuck. It could not complete my instruction even. So temperature এর value যদি আমি কমিয়ে দেই, say 1.5, let's see what happens. Although the output provided by DaVinci দেখে মনে হচ্ছে the output is actually quite good, there are some small issues, okay? যেমন if you see the 6th point, say concreteness, you can see DaVinci it actually generated some ambiguous response, okay? Not the word ambiguous, okay? I'm talking about this one, exp hashtag something, right? What does this mean? A particular word or whatever it is irrelevant, right? So I was trying to force DaVinci to be creative on a scenario where it should actually be deterministic, right? So to forcefully produce creativity, আমাদের DaVinci model it actually went out of the way and produced something that is irrelevant or unnecessary, okay? So as a prompt engineer, other than knowing your specific purpose, whether it's chat or complete, when designing your prompt আপনার এটাও বুঝতে হবে আমার prompt, am I expecting an output that is deterministic? নাকি আমি চাচ্ছি আমার model it should produce something that is more creative and diverse and random, produces something that is unpredictable, okay? If that's the case, then we should set the temperature to a higher value, okay? অপরদিকে if we want our model to be deterministic, the output is very expected and predictable, then আমাদের উচিত to set the temperature value to actually a lower value, okay?